Ladies and gentlemen, we're moving towards our next event, Investment and Financing for Sustainable Tourism, Country Practices and Policy Messages. We have a panel today with 4 speakers. I'll introduce them in a short moment. It's 3 of you. Okay. Investment is a very important question. You all know that the simplest way to deal with climate change, for example, would be to put a price on carbon. If you put it high enough, consumption will decline. That is just one example of what investment can do. Today we want to discuss this in this very elaborate round with our 4 guests. May I introduce to you Alain Dupeyras, I have to read this, the head of Regional Development and Tourism Division at the Center for Entrepreneurship, SMEs, Regions and Cities. A lot of responsibility, Alain. And then secondly, we have, Peter is not here, rather than represented.
Oh, we change.
Okay, you switched. Okay, then one of you will have to be introduced by you, Alain. Because I only have Richard Leather. The policy analyst, Regional Development and Tourism Division, also at the Center for Entrepreneurship at the OECD.
No
longer. Okay, my information.
From Australia.
Correct.
Yeah. I can introduce
ourselves.
We can introduce ourselves.
Stefan, no?
Maybe that's the thing with politics. Just this morning we got to know that the Minister of Justice is now Foreign Affairs, and it's always switching.
We can introduce.
Yeah. Right. Then we have Fernando de Pablo Martin, who is the president of Segitur. That is correct. And yes. Our last
Carlos
from Segitur.
Working with him.
Excellent. Perfect. Now, before we talk about politics and the importance of policies and governance, we have a very quick TED question for you. As you know, the TED questions have the purpose of determining your opinion on specific issues. I will read the question to you. Only when I say, please vote now, you will press the button that you think is representing your opinion on the little device that you find on your seat. The question is, who has the primary responsibility for sustainable tourism? Is it government? Is it industry? Is it tourists themselves? Or is it an equal responsibility among all of them?
I hope it will.
Please vote now. All right. Everybody is in charge. That seems to be the major opinion by 2/3 almost of you. And then we have a very strong favor with 1/5 of the votes for government. That is very good. Government is what we are going to talk about. Alain, over to you. I'm looking forward to your discussion.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Good morning, everybody. I'm a little bit worried by the result, and I was expecting a higher figure for industry, in fact, because at the end of the day, the industry is the one driving the tourism economy. So I think it has to play a big role. So we are here today as we are releasing, as you can see, a new report we just launched yesterday on OECD Tourism Trends and Policies 2018, which is covering about 50 OECD and partner countries, but which is also addressing 2 important policy issues, one on investment, and I will say a few words this morning on this issue, and the other one is about megatrends, and we had yesterday a policy workshop on this. We believe that tourism can be very important, could be instrumental in moving to the transition to more sustainable and inclusive economies. This is due to the nature of tourism, which is very cross-cutting and contributing to many sectors. And what we are discussing now is how we, through investment and financing, we can support the transition of the sector to low carbon, resource efficient and socially inclusive tourism development. So the work we have been doing is looking, for example, at what are the opportunities to support green innovation in tourism. I think we are aware of many initiatives in the energy efficient transition, which is probably the most part of what the industry, in particular the hotel industry, is doing. But there are much more to be done on water management, for example, on waste management, but also in relation to biodiversity issues or to cultural heritage. And we should not forget that why, for example, the role of the public sector is also important in an area like tourism. It's also because through tourism, tourism is making use of many public goods, natural resources, cultural resources, and so there is an important role to play there. By doing this, the tourism economy can support, to deliver on sustainable development goals. We know that tourism is particularly targeted, with 3 goals, but there may be many other goals which are also interesting in relation to tourism. The financing options that we have on the table are multiple, are very diverse for sustainable tourism development. It could be either public financing or private financing, but presumably it will be in many cases public-private partnerships. We have been looking also at what are some of the barriers or some of the challenges to succeed in the end in boosting investment and financing for sustainable tourism. We have been doing a full review of OECD member countries, and what we identified 4 main challenges. First one is the lack of suitable finance instruments, and for example, it could be linked to the transaction cost, linked to the financing of very small tourism businesses. Second one is insufficient data and measurement, and very often we have no sectoral breakdown for tourism in many of the data we are using there. Limited incentive for sustainable practices. It's also something which is very apparent. Or inadequate coordination across government, which is another big topic for the OECD, which is how can we support a more efficient whole of government approach to tourism, which means interministerial, but also vertical in having the central government working better with different levels of government. So how can we mainstream investment and financing for sustainable tourism development? We identify 3 main lines of action: promoting investment, and I will give you a few quick examples. Promoting investment and finance for sustainable development. Here we are speaking about developing specific programs targeting tourism investment, or better connecting tourism actors with the available tools and instruments, because very often there is a lack of knowledge about the instruments which are available for this. Creating a coherent and sustainability-friendly investment environment. Then I think here we will have the case of Australia presented. I think it's a very good case to show how a country can support a friendly investment environment supporting sustainable tourism, but also the critical importance of a private sector, as I was saying, and the need to encourage sustainable and responsible business practice. Let me just give you a few examples, because the OECD at the end of the day is very much about collecting the good policy practices or the good industry practices which exist around the table and seeing together how we can, elevate this to support each other. It's about cooperation. Here, for example, if I take just one example, the Mexico one, in Mexico they have been giving some long-term loans and public guarantees to promote green energy investment in hotels. So this, in order to reduce greenhouse gas emission. But there are plenty of such examples, and I would just encourage you to look at the work we have been doing. Creating a coherent and sustainability-friendly tourism investment environment. We will have the case of Australia, but in Sweden, they have been working, the regional Agency for Economic and Regional Growth has been working with the 5 regions' main destination to better understand their needs and then to target better investment and financing for sustainable tourism development. On this issue of encouraging sustainable and responsible tourism business practice, we have, for example, the case in Germany of the Hotel and Restaurant Association, which has been developing a specific campaign to engage hotels in more systemic energy saving. Or in Iceland, we have some other initiative also with the idea to support tourism SMEs. The difficulty sometimes we have in tourism is how to reach these small businesses which are spread out all over the territory. And not only that, but they are also very fragmented in different parts of the industry. So to conclude, we are looking at a number of policies that can help to address the sustainable investment gap. And this is looking at green finance, for example, and how we can encourage the uptake of green financing for tourism projects. It's about responsible business practices. It's about having a better coordination of actions across different levels of government. And the issue of capacity. The issue of capacity is also very important to understand, again, the tools which are available to move with this. And I will finish with this issue of data and analysis. We in tourism are very often a bit lagging behind many other sectors in terms of data and monitoring. I think given the economic importance of tourism, it's not anymore possible. We have to align with what is going on in other sectors, and here I think we have to still to make progress. So thank you very much. I will leave you with this. I just want to inform you that all of our data are available online. The OECD is working with open data, so it means all of you can play with the data. If you go to the website, you can also email us if you want more information. So thank you very much. So we will take the 3 short speeches, and then I think we will move to the discussion. But maybe before doing this, we will move to the second TED question that you should have. So the question is the government doing enough to promote investment in sustainable tourism? Yes, no, they should do a little more, or no, they need to do a lot more. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we should have waited to ask that question after we talked about some of the things government are doing. But I feel as though I've got a lot to answer for in my presentation, which I will hopefully get to in a moment. Okay. So I'm here representing the Australian government. I work as the Consul General in Frankfurt, but I'm also the head of the Trade and Investment Commission for Europe. One of the important things that we notice, I'll just go to the next slide. Yeah. Or not. Okay. Just some basic statistics on tourism, because I think it's really important to understand the vital role that tourism plays in the Australian economy. Many of you will know, or many of you won't, that we haven't had a recession for 27 years in Australia, and that's largely been because we have gradually managed and evolved our economy into areas of continued growth and demand, and we are in the process at the moment of transitioning more towards the services sector and away from some of the things that you would think that the Australian economy is traditionally focused on, like resources and energy. Our biggest services export sector at the moment is tourism. It's about 10% of our services exports. The numbers up on the screen here are self-evident in terms of its contribution. Tourism is growing faster as a contributor to the economy than the economy is growing itself. And so the government itself seeks to come up with policy responses to support that growth in its contribution to the economy, but at the same time there are some key features that I'll touch on which are the core focus on this, talking about the sustainability of investment in tourism. It is a major national priority. There are currently $39 billion worth of projects in the pipeline, which are largely aimed at increasing capacity and the range of experiences and the broadening out the product that Australia has in its tourism. We've been working on this since 2012, and it really shows a multi-level integration between multiple levels of government, and I think it was one of the points made earlier about we have a federal system in Australia, we have states and territories, and we have a federal government, and the role of the federal government to coordinate, to facilitate and attract investment, international investment and domestic investment into the sector, to streamline some of the capacity issues, but at the same time bring a sustainability overlay to it. The example that I think is probably of most interest is in relation to the Great Barrier Reef. I'm sure many of you are aware of it. One of the interesting things that we did as a government was conduct a range of research to actually value the thing. It's interesting when you look at your assets, but what is the economic value of the Great Barrier Reef to Australia? And a whole range of metrics, and you could spend years debating whether the right ones were used, came up with a value of this asset about $56 billion. In part of the reef plan, a plan on managing it out to 2050 in terms of making sure that the demands of tourism, the interest in the development of tourism assets adjacent to and within the Great Barrier Reef National Park sought to create a sustainable environment into the future, building resilience, making sure that some of the key issues relating to overuse are effectively managed. And this was managed in consultation with an organisation called the Clean Energy Finance Corporation, which has committed $1 billion in finance, hard dollars into finance over the next 10 years for clean energy projects and businesses that actually support the reef plan. I'm sure most of you don't have the Australian euro conversion in your head, but that works out about 630 billion euro over the next 10 years in terms of investment finance that supports environmentally sustainable activity in the margins of the Great Barrier Reef. The major tourism facilitation projects that we have in support of that recognise that we also have an economy, as I mentioned, that's transitioning. We have gateway cities identified for our tourism programs, the major cities that you'd be familiar with, but we're also shifting towards having more of our tourism expenditure, more of the tourism experience is happening in regional Australia. This has a lot of the benefits that were mentioned in the earlier session about providing jobs and experience and opportunities to develop assets in regional Australia, which further provides opportunities for having a more dispersed economy. But also these new assets that are coming online at the moment are new assets, they're new experiences. And if we can work with the states and territories as a federal agency to put frameworks in where they're making sustainability a key feature of this, then the major purpose of having these assets in region Australia, which is people coming to see some of these areas of outstanding natural beauty, wilderness experiences, food, wine experiences, helping the local communities understand the benefits of more sustainable approaches, and providing financial aid and support as well as regulatory smoothing from a federal perspective are the key areas that we're focusing on. A large focus of the work that my organisation does is engaging with international investors in relation to coming in and supporting it, and it goes to this public-private partnership arrangement that looks at what sort of tourism assets can be developed in areas of natural beauty, in national parks. We have relatively low usage and interaction of tourisms into the national parks, which means that the new projects and processes we're doing are new. And it gives us a fairly blank canvas in relation to how we can develop them. I should move on and hand over to our friends from the other speeches now. Happy to take any questions either at the end, or I'll be hanging around at the back if you have specific questions you would like to ask. Thank you.
Well, good morning. First of all, I would like to thank OECD and Alain and Peter for the invitation to be here to share with you our strategy to increase the digitalization and sustainability of our tourism sector in Spain and the financial instrument to support this strategy. This is important. The financial tools serves to a national strategy. My name is Fernando de Pablo. I am the CEO of Segitur for less than a year, so I'm brand new in this sector. But next to me is Carlos Romero, Director of R&D, with more than 20 years working for the tourism sector in Spain and directly responsible for the financial instruments programs of Segitur. Well, Segitur is a public company depending on the Ministry of Energy, Tourism and Digital Agenda, reporting to the Secretary of State of Tourism. We are in charge of the foster of innovation and technology and entrepreneurship in the tourism sector in Spain, with both public and private actors. We believe that these three areas, energy, tourism, and digital agenda, has a lot of synergies, putting the focus in digitalization, sustainability, and energy efficiency. And we are in close cooperation and coordination in our actions to improve the tourism sector in Spain. We think everybody knows about the huge economic crisis in Spain between 2008 and 2014. I remember that in that time I was working in an office created by the government to put in practice reform in the public administration to fight the economic crisis. And the tourism was a key sector to overcome the crisis in Spain. There were always bad news in that time in a lot of economic indicators. I remember 26% of unemployment rate, but not in the case of tourism. So tourism has been one of the pillars of Spanish recovery after the crash. We have increased more than 90% the number of tourists, and what is more important, the expenditures and the surplus of our trade balance. Tourism is 11% of GDP, 30% of unemployment. Those figures you could see in my presentation. So Spain is the most competitive country in tourism according to the World Economic Forum report in 2017. So we think we are prepared for the tourism of today, but we need to be prepared for the tourism of tomorrow. And the key word for that is sustainability. And the key drivers for us, sustainable tourism, in our opinion, is increasing innovation and technology in our sector in Spain. We are developing a comprehensive national strategy in both public and private sectors, because tourism needs the cooperation of all actors and stakeholders, putting the focus in the tourist. And of course, with participation of local residents, because local residents must not be the loser of a tourism industry, specifically when we have some cases of over-tourism in Spain. In the case of private sector, building a digital agenda for tourism and cooperating with programs like Industry 4.0, coordinating plans and action with digital agenda, mainly in the case of small and medium enterprises in Spain. And in case of public sector, we are developing a smart destination strategy. What is this? Well, smart destination strategy has 4 pillars. A methodology, considered a best practice case by the UN WTO, the use of standards. You know, Spain is a highly decentralized country, and interoperability, standards, reuse of public information, of software application, open data is very important for us. Intelligent tourism system to manage the tourism, because we need tools to manage the tourism in real time. And of course, the financial instrument to support this policy and strategy. The methodology of Smart Destination evaluates more than 400 indicators around these 5 axes: governance, technology, sustainability, and accessibility. Let me spend half a minute to talk about the tourism intelligence system. Tourism leaves a high digital footprint, a lot of information, a lot of data, as Alain told us. And we need data to develop information system, to know what is happening in our destination, to take decisions in real time, and to plan for the future. We need what we call data-driven tourism destinations. Coming back to the financial instrument, we have several tools in the 3 Secretaries of States with the aim of increasing digitalization and sustainability of our tourism sector. The most important thing is to coordinate actions in our ministry to take the most advantage of the available budget. As an example, we have a financial program, Emprendetour, to help entrepreneurship in tourism in Spain. With this program, we have invested more than 80 million euros in 4 years to help more than 300 different projects. Nowadays, we are preparing the next emission of grants for 2018 and 2019. The main financial instrument in course in this moment is a grant of 60 million euros to a small destination, joining national and European funds and led by Digital Agenda Secretary of State, but in great collaboration with us in more detail. Please, Carlos, could you explain in details this instrument?
Oh, yes. Good morning. I'm glad to be here with all of you. My name is Carlos. I'm working very closely with Fernando. I've been the one responsible for, together with the Digital Agenda Department in Spain, designing this program. So they asked me to go into some of the specifics. To have an idea of what it represents in terms of budget, this initiative, the Smart Destination program in Spain. The budget of the Secretary of State for Tourism in Spain, it's around, on yearly basis, of around 300 million euros. In this case, in the case of this program, we are going to invest 60 million euros in promoting digitalization, technification, different solutions at the destination level. And we are doing it with budget that comes from another department of our ministry, which is the Digital Agenda Department, the one responsible for promoting digitalization in a transversal way. So somehow from tourism, we are getting advantage of those funds already allocated for digitalization and new technologies in Spain, to use those funds into very specific projects in some very specific tourism destinations in Spain. It is a program of over 60 million euros. Half of the program is financed by European funds. And part of it, 20% of each project financed through this initiative has to be financed also by the destination itself. Our idea is to finance around 10, 12 projects, big projects, with capacity to create some traction from other initiatives related with technology and smart destinations. Each project could reach a maximum budget of around 6 million euros. And we are going to coverage at a maximum of 80% the cost of those projects. Any local entity, any municipality, any destination in Spain is willing to, and it is allowed to participate in the program, but you have to guarantee that you have at least a population of over 20,000 inhabitants all over the year in the destination. So somehow we are trying to focus on the bigger ones. We are going to fund through this initiative different kinds of things. The first thing we would like to finance it is some consultancy services, no? some consultancy to develop and to do diagnosis and to elaborate plans to develop their own smart destination strategies. And a smart destination, and Fernando already mentioned it, it is not just about digitalization, ICTs, technology. It is about understanding what are your pains, what are your weaknesses as destinations, and many times those weaknesses have to do with governance or with sustainability or with environment or with overcrowded destinations, and try to face them and to solve them using in the process new technologies and new tools that are available in the market. So we are going to try to, through this project, also to improve energy efficiency, to reduce carbon footprint. We would like to promote interoperability of the different technological tools in all those different projects. So our idea is to reutilize the investment made and replicate those big tractor projects in 10 destinations all over Spain in smaller destinations. We would like to guarantee to generate some metrics, some data to compare the results and to make the follow-up of the evolution of the implementation of those technologies and platforms. And of course, to promote the creation of what we have called the tourism intelligence system. No? So to be smarter destinations and to take smarter decisions, we need data and we need to be well informed to succeed. No? So maybe we could go now to the questions. Yeah, thank you. Oh yes, this latest slide. We are organizing in Spain the second worldwide Smart Destination Congress. It is organized together by the Spanish government with the World Tourism Organization. It would take place in next June in Oviedo, in a region in Spain called Asturias, and you are all welcome to visit that and to join the event. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's maybe time for our third question, if you can put it on. So, is industry investing enough to develop tourism sustainability? Yes, no, they should do a little more, or no, they need to do a lot more. Yeah, I think it's clear. Okay. So I think we have a little bit of time to take questions. So I would encourage you to put some questions. We have been discussing some specific country examples, the financing of smart destination, but also more widely what is going on within the OECD group of countries. As we understand, these issues of financing and investment are critical, I would say, in an area like tourism. And the reason is very simple. Tourism is growing quite rapidly and will continue to grow over the coming years. All forecast is very clear about this. We need to make this tourism economy much more sustainable and inclusive. There will be needs for new type of infrastructure. There will also be needs to rethink, rejuvenate, or refresh some of the existing infrastructure. And to do all of this, we need the appropriate investment and financing. At the same time, we know that public money is becoming quite rare in a way, and so, as I was saying at the beginning, the tourism economy is primarily driven by the industry. So I think we are mainly speaking about public-private partnership to support infrastructure for sustainable tourism development. So I think the question is, how best can we achieve this? We have been seeing some presentation. So if you have any question about all of this or more specific, we would be pleased to take them, please. Yes, if you can introduce yourself, I think it's always good for the audience.
Phil Harmon from First Point Marketing from Australia. I think that Spanish investment fund looks actually sort of very interesting in the sort of things that would actually back. But I wouldn't mind just a few more examples, tangible examples of what sort of projects you would see that investment fund being used for.
Well, we just launched the initiative, and we launched it last December, and we gave them the destinations in Spain 3 months to present their projects, and we are right now analyzing the projects. It is the first time we are doing something like that. So of course that we have been in touch with many different destinations, and they have keep telling us about their projects, but we are in the evaluation phase. No, there's always the risk with those initiatives of having projects too IT driven. No? We also have some interesting meetings with big IT companies in Spain and from all over Europe, interested in incorporating those destinations a lot of technology. And through an initiative like this, it is so that you could finance the implementation of big platforms, big softwares and hardware and telecom infrastructures. No? But there's always the risk of doing all that without understanding first what are your real problems and how are you going to use this huge investment on technology to solve them. We have always the risk of creating additional problems related with the technology used. But we are still in the phase of analyzing the projects.
Thank you very much. Yes, please. Do you have a microphone? In fact, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, very good discussion. I'm Sotiris Milonas from Greece. In Greece we have tourism, but there is a lot of seasonality. So the private investment always looking for quick gains, and sustainability is not the #1 question, especially in the hotel sector. So what do you think are the measures the governments, the industry can do to change this idea, to bring sustainability as a priority? And also I have that's my first question, and also a comment. Yesterday, the European Union has given the agenda for the financial system to bring sustainability as a priority. Is there any link with OECD and how tourism can be involved in this?
Thank you very much. I will start to respond, but feel free to add. So we have this debate about seasonality of the tourism industry and the profitability of a sector in a way. I think this is very much linked to this, and how to make the tourism sector better understood by bankers and investors and different types. This is a big issue which is on the table forever, and this is where I think public-private partnership can really help in making the case. Of course, each sector is different, but tourism, even if in tourism we have a high seasonality, we have different specific elements which are part of the system, I think everybody understands that if the sector is well managed and many tourism businesses at the end of the day are quite profitable, But we are lacking data in the tourism sector, as I was saying, and I think bankers, they need evidence, they need more robust figures about the tourism economy to demonstrate that at the end of the day, this investing in this sector is more profitable. But my personal feeling, and I was in Greece last week discussing also with the tourism ministers, and we had a main discussion of the World Tourism Forum, Lucerne, about was infrastructure for development and public-private partnership, is that this issue of public-private partnership can really help to address this issue. On making sustainability at the front of any discussion, I think European Commission is part of the OECD. European Commission is a member of the OECD, so we are working closely with them on these issues, and I think we are well aligned. I don't know if any of you want to add something on this seasonality issue, because in Spain, I'm sure it's a big topic also.
Well, yes, it is a big topic. In Spain, we have been managing a program called Europe Senior Tourism during the last 5 years. If you are interested, I could send you some information. And it is a program by which we have been trying to commercialize certain highly seasonalized destinations in winter in certain Western European countries, with this idea of bringing tourists to Spain in winter, to certain specific destinations. We succeeded in the last 5 years to convince over 120,000 Western Europeans to travel to Spain in winter through this program. Very similar to our national social tourism program in winter, but with an European focus, Europe Senior Tourism Program.
Yeah, and seasonality. For example, we have been working a lot with Iceland. I know you are in the room. And in Iceland, everybody was thinking about the summer season, but now the winter season is more important than the summer season, because people want to be there in winter. So I think there is nothing definitive also on this issue. Yes. And many things can be done to improve seasonality factor in tourism. Please.
Hello, I'm Gerben Hardeman from the Dutch Travel Trade Association. And I have a question on how can you include the local residents in your sustainability approach? Because I think it's really essential, but can you give some good examples? I think Spain is doing well, but could they give some example? And I was also wondering how Australia is doing that. Thank you very much.
I may do a very quick introduction on this, but we think it's critical, it's essential, and nowadays, no tourism policy, no tourism development can be done without the support of local residents and local economies. I think that should be at the very beginning of any discussion on tourism. This, unfortunately, was not so much happening always in all places. I think the question is really about developing better management of tourism from the beginning, having a longer term vision, thinking also about the carrying capacity of a certain territory, because not all territories, can accommodate, an indefinite number of visitors, and this has to do then with accommodation capacity and so on and so on. But I'm sure you will have some more concrete examples. So you.
From an Australian perspective, we have, once again, with the federal model, we have a particular set of criteria under which the federal minister can facilitate and fast-track projects. The criteria under which the minister will do that, in consultation with the state and territory governments, relates to their response to a whole load of actions. So you have to qualify under all of the areas, including national interest, local engagement, and more issues around the sustainability, the broad sustainability of the project, and the scale of the project, which I think also goes to the earlier question on financeability. As the industry scales, then it's easier to address some of these issues to the financiers about how you reach a critical mass in an area in which you can show that the contribution is being made to the community and that you can make them understand the payoffs that are necessary and the offsets that are necessary for sustainability to bank the project.
Thank you. So we have 2 more minutes. One question, please, if you can introduce yourself.
Thank you for the very interesting presentations. My question is, how do you go about budgeting? You mentioned briefly for planning smart destinations, and how do you go about calculating the return on investment and what the impact of turning a destination into a smart one. And as you answered the budgeting question, if you could let me know, how do you deal with the other bodies, governmental bodies, that you would be taking some money from their budgets so that you can develop your smart destination? Thank you.
You can be short in your answer, because then you can continue, then we can take the last question.
Okay. Yeah, very short. It is very important to measure the impact of the smart destination, to measure on the levels of satisfaction of the citizens, the residents of the in the destinations. So many times the conversation about the smart destination is taken directly with the mayor of the city, with the mayor, and he do care about their voters and about their citizens. So the first thing that we have to keep in mind is that we have to be able to measure the increase in the level of satisfaction of the residents and citizens of the city and the destination where it is taking place, this program. And afterwards, we have to measure satisfaction of the visitors arriving to those places. We measure it in terms of increase of average length of stay, increase of average length of stay of the visitors received at the destination, and in terms of tourism expenditure made at the destination. So it is the return that we expect from a program like this. No? And,
so I think we have to close. So I suggest you put your question directly after the talk, because we are a little bit short of time. So you can come to see us. I just want to mention that we put on the back of the table somewhere a few copies of this, and also we have a summary in German, and we have a few copies in French and in English. So thank you very much for your participation. It was very enjoyable.
Thank you.